Check it out, I just got this book, Dark Physics, and guess who wrote it? Me and ChatGPT. So look at that cool cover. So these are all the questions I was asking about, what is the universe trying to hide? So check it out. We got some crazy pictures. I show how space-time curves. I show, all these different. ChatGPT did all these cool math equations and how these pictures, but clearly I had to sort of figure out what all this was about and sort of write out these descriptions. Here's how artificial intelligence works. This is like random forests and stuff and decision trees. Look at that. It's kind of like playing that game. This is really interesting. And then, of course, we get into radioactivity and how they discovered X-rays and this radioactive stuff. Well, this stuff is really insane, dude. And then we go into extreme physics over here. Look at those reactors over there. You got this stuff here happening. Just cool pictures. Some of these pictures don't really make a lot of sense. This is just like classical turbulence, but I'm trying to represent that with this. You can kind of see what's happening there. When we get into this stuff over here, like the Planck length and Planck's time, and I just had a lot of fun over here. This is like curved space-time and QFT and CST. Picture there is crazy. We get into like really intense math. This is like string theory. What the heck? This is the theory of open strings and like the math. We try to explain, a little bit about all these different things. Of course, over time, as you start to read this book, it makes a lot more sense. So it's not like, I just jumped straight into this, but this is towards the end of the book where we start to look at these crazy integrals about string theory, and we try to cancel the anomalies and get into compact dimensions and stuff, and then we get into string theory. This is like E8 structure, and then towards the end, trying to build out, this is the holographic theory. Oh my god. And we're getting to this duality situation, ADS space and day sitter space and curved spaces with negatively curvature spaces. Oh my gosh. And then finally, we start getting the zeta functions, and how the heck do we get into this quantum gravity stuff? Well, I'm telling you, this is really interesting. Look at that space-time with the null twist. What is this? How on earth are we going to combine space-time, general relativity with quantum mechanics and get into the same language? Well, that's what this whole book is about, dark physics. Now, I was asking some questions like, well, what is the universe trying to hide? And I started wondering about dark matter and dark energy, right? What the heck is that stuff? And I just sort of followed this line of questioning. It sort of took me into this black hole situation, right? To sort of figure out what was going on with there. And then the idea that there's just quantum happening. Well, what the heck are even quantum computers? And then, of course, artificial intelligence is, just comes from that. And then when we're looking at, well, how on earth is a physicist supposed to make money? Where does all the money go? And then, well, it turns out that antimatter is the most expensive thing in the universe. It's like $67 million or something. And, well, it comes with Annihilation. And then from there, we sort of look at nuclear physics and try to figure out what's going on in the atom. And of course, well, the darkest part of this book I kind of avoided because we got into an extreme physics where we get into like, the most hottest stuff, the most coldest stuff, the extremes. And well, at this point, a lot of people started dying and stuff, and I just didn't really want to write that chapter about like, the dangers of physics, like, because there's a lot of dangerous things in experiments, but I sort of skipped that chapter because it was a little too dark for me. The dangers of physics experiments. So we just go straight into the standard model and we start looking at just particle physics. And then, beyond the standard model, I started thinking about string theory. What the heck is that? Turns out that somebody already figured out what entanglement entropy is, and they essentially sort of put together the bits and pieces where I started to collect things together, and from twistor theory we started to come up with Helix quantum gravity, although at the beginning I called it null quantum gravity. So this stuff is pretty fresh. That last chapter is not really written really well either, but you know, it's just sort of stuff that I'm starting to gather because I want to put together Helix quantum gravity. Hopefully you guys enjoy this and want to pick it up because it's only $17 and you can get it at lulu.com press. I'm gonna have a link in the description so that you can order this book.